Welcome to another session in using Linux. And in this session, we want to have a look at groups. How do we configure them? Without further ado, let us move over into the portal. And first of all, we are going to have a look at the groups that we have available on this system. So it's cat etc group. And if we have a look here, we are seeing all the groups, the last group being K group. So let's do a clear. And we are going to add a group by making use of the group add command. And the name of this group, let's call it my underscore admin. Now note, we need to be using escalated privileges. So we need to be using sudo. Let us use the up arrow key to get back the command. And let's use sudo before it. It asks for the password for the root user who is calling me. So I'm going to enter that password and the group should now be there. So let's try back the first command that we had, which is cat etc group. And if we look at the end, we are realizing that there is indeed a group called my underscore admin. So we have just added a group by using the group add command. We're also going to add a user by using the user add command. And if you look at the user add command, you will realize that there are several options that we have available. For example, option U allows us to indicate a user ID. Option M allows us to indicate what the home directory is going to be. Option P allows us to set a password. Option G, and note it's big G, allows us to indicate which group the user is going to become a member of. So we're going back to the portal. We're going to do a cat etc, and this time it's going to be the pass wd file. And this will give us a list of all the users who are currently on the system. So the last user that we have here is Karen. So we're going to add a user. We're going to ensure that the user has a home directory. And the name of this user, we're going to call it user1. Once again, please note we need to be using elevated privileges. So we add sudo before the command, and we should now be good. So if we go back to cat etc, pass wd, and we have a look at the end of the file, we're now seeing that we do indeed have a new user. Now remember, we had indicated that the user should have a home directory. So we want to go to the home folder and have a look. So cd/home, we are going to do an ls, and we are seeing right here that we now have a user called user1 who has a home directory called user1. I'm going to create another user called user2. So user add. This time I'm not creating a home directory. Just want to make a point to you. And it's going to be user2. And let's sudo. So we have our privileges. We hit enter and we got no error. If we do a cat etc, pass wd, then we know that there are two users, user1 and user2. User2 was just created. So we are seeing the users in the user file. But if we go back to home and we do a ls, please note that we're only seeing the directory for user 1. So we're not seeing the directory for user 2 because we did not tell the system, or the command that we use did not tell the system that we should have created a home folder for user 2. Let's do a ls-l so we can have a look at what kind of permissions are on user 1. We note that for the owner, we have read, write, and execute access. But we also note that for the group and for other, we only have read and execute access respectively. We also note that the name of the person is user 1 and the group name is user 1. We will be changing the group name in a few based on the kind of illustration or demonstration that we are making in this video. So let's do a clear. And I'm going to go ahead and create a directory that we will be using as the admin directory. And I'm going to create it right here inside this home folder. Once again, let's have a look at all the stuff that are in here. So all of these are actually, well, most of these are directories related to users, but I'm now going to create a directory called admin directory. So let's call it admin dir. Once again, need the privileges. So let's do another ls. And here we are seeing the directory called admin dir. Let's have a look at permissions because that's going to be important. So note that for the permissions, if we look at who owns it, it's root. And if we look at the group that this is associated with, it is also root. We are going to be changing the group. And the group that we want to change it to is going to be that group that we had created earlier. So let's do a clear. And let's go back to have a look at the group name. And remember, let me just double check which command I had just executed. All right, great. So if we look at the group name, the one that we're interested in is the one that says my_admin. So we are going to be using that group and associating it with that directory that we have just created. So remember, it's my_admin. So let's do a clear. We have our admin directory right here, and we want to change the group. So we're going to use the change group command. So the change group command is chgroup. I'm using sudo before it. And we are changing it to my admin. And the directory that we are concerned about is the admin directory. So if everything went well, then when we check back, we should be seeing the root for the group being changed to my admin. So ls-l. And if we have a look at the admin directory, we see that the group has indeed changed to my admin. And what this is now saying is that everybody who belongs to the group, my admin, will now be able to read the content of this directory and also be able to cd into the directory. Now, we had user 1. And if we have a look at user one right here, then we realize that the group for user one is actually user one. We now want to put user one into the group my admin. So let's sudo change group. The group that we want to change to is my admin. And the user who we want to give that group to is user one. So let's do another ls-l, and user one has now been added to the my admin group. And what this means is that user one is now able to access this admin directory. We will test that temporarily. But first of all, we need to ensure that user one has a password. Now, there is a command here called passwd that allows us to add a password to a user account. We're going to be making use of that command in a few. But let's first of all try to switch user. So switch user, and we're switching to user one. Notice it's asking for a password, which we had not set up. So therefore, we're going to get an authentication failure whenever we try to log in. We need to ensure that we have a password for that user. So let's say passwd user one. Please remember to use the sudo command. And now it's asking us to enter a password for user one. And in this case, I'm just going to use user one as the password. And you'll be asked to retype the password. And what we have just done is we have just set a password for user one. And we have used the same name, user one, as the password. So let's now switch user to user one. And let's now enter the password, which is user one. And note that the prompt has changed. And if we say, who am I? Then it tells us that we are user one. Let's change to the bash. The shell is PWSH, I think. Right, PowerShell. So note, it indicates right here who is the user, user one. We are currently in the home directory of user one. And if we do an ls, we're seeing here that user one directory is present. We had seen this before. And cd dash now carries us into the home directory, which is /home/user one. So let us do an ls. And we're seeing pretty much that the directory is empty, apart from those auxiliary files that would have been created. So if we do ls-l, ls-l with A for all, then you're realizing that you're seeing all the hidden files, which would be associated with this user one folder. So we are doing back a clear. And what we're now going to do is we are going to try and see if this user now has access to that folder that we had spoken about earlier. So remember, if we cd back to home and we do a ls, then the folder that we are talking about is the admin directory. So let's see if the user can navigate to that directory. So cd admin _dir. and we were able to go into it properly, which is good. Let's go back out and let's see if we do an ls for admin dir, if we'll get an error message. And we're not getting an error, which means that we are also able as this user to see the contents of the folder. And we can test that by going back into the folder. And let us see if we can actually create a file. Now, for those of you who are paying attention, the answer should be no, because we did not put any write access on this particular folder. So let's try that. So touch, let's call it admin.txt. And it tells us that permission is denied. Let us try if we use elevated privileges, if that would make a difference. So it's asking for the password for user one. And it's telling us that user one is not in the sudoers file, so they can't be using the touch command. That's something that we will be looking at shortly in terms of how do we give privileges. So let's do a clear. Let us go back out of this user. So we want to go back to the root user, which is me. So we're typing exit again, and we're back where we started. Me. ls, well, ls-l, remember, admin directory. There is the my admin group, and the group has read and execute access. So we can change that by using the change mod command. Group, let us add the write access, and we're adding it to admin dir. We need sudo. And let's do a clear. Then we do back out ls-l. We now have read, write, and execute permissions on that particular file. So anybody who is a part of the my admin group should now be able to add files to the admin directory. So let us go into the admin directory as me, and let's do a touch. Let's say me.txt. Once again, let us give the sudo privileges. And this time, note that me was now able to create a file inside of the directory. And if we do a ls, well, a ls-l, then we are seeing that the me.txt file has been created, and it has root as the owner, and it also has root as the group. We're now going to switch user back to user one. We're changing the shell. Just doing a clear. And we're now going to go back into that directory. So cd admin dir. Oh, sorry, we are already in admin dir. So let's do a clear. And let us do a sudo touch. And this time, let's call it user1.txt. It's asking for user one password. And remember, we had indicated earlier that user1 is not in the sudoers file. So there's no permission that has been given to actually make use of the touch command. So one of the things that we're going to do, we're going to look at the location of the touch command. And the location of the touch command is in user bin touch. So /user/bin/touch. We are going to make use of that command shortly. So let's exit. And we are going to be making use of something called sudo. Sudo, which takes us into the file that gives permission. Notice it's called sudoers. So we can use our arrow keys and navigate through the file. And there are two sections which are important here. We can give privileges to users, and we can give privileges to group. Notice that we have privileges for a group known as sudo. So the syntax says that we need to put the ampersand sign. We need to put the name of the group, which would be my_admin. Then all is equal to, and then we specify the path. So it is usr/bin/touch. That's what we would have seen. And then we control S, and then we control X. So control S is to save, and control X is to exit out of the nano editor. You have already looked at nano editor, so you understand how to navigate that. All right, so we are going to try this again. We are going to switch user back to user1. Let us change the shell. We do a clear. We are inside the directory that we want to be in, which is the admin directory. And we now do sudo touch and user1.txt. And we're still getting the error message that says the user1 is not in the sudoers file. So let's go back and see what is going on there. So we exit. Sudo by sudo. We just want to ensure that the changes that we made earlier were actually saved. All right, so I'm seeing it there. It says my admin all equal user bin touch. Let me double check just to ensure that that's the path to the file. So which touch usr bin/touch. Says usr bin/touch. All right, so that seems fine. So other thing that left to do is to look at the permissions just to double check. So let us ls-l. We don't need to be there. We need to be outside of that directory. So ls-l. So we're just looking here. So we have the proper access, read, write, and execute. The group here is my admin. So that is fine so far. I'm going to check just to ensure that user is inside the correct group. So we're using the groups command, user1. And therein is the challenge. So user1 is still assigned to the user1 group. We need to ensure that user1 has access to the my admin group. So let's sudo, let's change group, my admin, user1, and then let's use groups, user1, and that did not work. All right, let's do a group add. So wouldn't be a group add. Would have to use where we're going to modify the group. So let me just look at the syntax for that. So it would be user mod, and we would use the -G option. By the way, the user mod and the user add use similar options. So it's user mod -big G, and what we want to add, it's going to be my admin, and the user is user1. Let's put the sudo before that. And let's check that again. Groups, user1. All right, now user1 has been added to the my admin group. So let's go back again and we try all of that. So we want to switch user to user1. PWD, where are we? We're at home. Who am I? We're user1. So let's cd into the admin directory. And then let us sudo touch user1.txt. And that seemed to work fine. So we can now do a lf. And we are seeing the user1 file now created. Oh, I had forgotten to change the shell. So let's just have a look at it from the shell. If we do a ls, we're realizing that we have created this file called user1.txt. Let's create another one. So let's say touch new user1.txt. Notice there's no error this time. And when we do a ls, we're now seeing that file new user1.txt being created. So we have just demonstrated how to navigate and make use of the group commands. Please note that the permissions that we have set up for the different directories, different folders, etc., needs to be set up correctly, or we won't get the kind of access that we need. We've also looked at how to add additional commands by making use of the sudo command, which brings us into the configuration file. So we can make the adjustments which are necessary. And I think this is a good place to stop, given that this video might be a little bit lengthy. So we will pick up in our next session. So take care.